Good evening, everyone. I'm Sakshi Manna, host of today's session. I am third year student of D.Y. Patil International University. Welcoming all on 13th day of DSC Carnival. There will be a quick after the session, so do it. Winner of the previous session will be announced at the end of the session, and winner will get the T-shirt from the prep packs. There will be also some participant session questions. Today is the day one of the topic graph. I will give a quick summary what all topics are going to cover in today's session. BFS, DFS, pi parting check, float fill, DSC. We are honored to have Mr. Yashraj Kakkar as our today's session speaker, and we are extremely happy to have a gem like you. He is a five-star coach chef coder and expert rated coach forces. He was awarded as Rising Star at Blog 2017, India's largest blogging conference. Currently, he is a summer analyst and Goldman Sachs. Over to Yashraj Kakkar.
Hi, yes, thanks for having me. Uh, Thank you, Team DSA Carnival, the 10 chapters who are behind this initiative. Graphs happens to be my favorite topic, and I'm really excited to spend like an hour or maybe 90 minutes with you guys to discuss whatever I think is important as a beginner for someone who does not understand graphs at all. A bit about myself. I'm a third year student at Ahmedabad University, pursuing my BTech in Information and Communication Tech. I'm currently, as you heard already, I'm currently a summer analyst at Goldman Sachs. And I spent some time doing competitive programming, but mostly in my second year. And graphs is something I really enjoy. Like it happens to be one of my favorite data structures, and I really enjoy doing problems of graph theory. I have also been involved with communities such as Google DSC, where I was a DSC lead, coach of chapters, and the programming club of Ahmedabad University. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Let's directly move on to the slide, as I think we are short of time today. So yes, the agenda is mostly conveyed to you. Uh, I will probably not go into DSU and things like that because I think it is too much for a single session. But yes, we will start from uh, what a graph is, and we will try to go to some very standard problems which exist. And once you have this ground clear, I think you can sort of stretch this understanding to advanced algorithms, to more fancy questions. And if you think hard enough, you will realize that most of the ideas in graphs are extensions of some very basic algorithms. So once you have a good grasp of this, I don't think you should have any problem solving graph questions. Like, yeah, of course, like I'm assuming that you practice a lot, but uh, in the theory, that this is all there is to it. Like, even shortest path algorithms can be considered as an extension of DFS or BFS. So, yeah, let's directly jump in. So, also I will be checking the comments periodically, and if you have anything uh, which troubles you, if you have any query, just feel free to send a message. And I don't really want it to be a lecture kind of a session. I really think that you can find much better courses online which can teach you uh, things from the basics. But since you are attending it live, you can take advantage of this session and you can interact, you can ask questions. And I will try to be very informal in the discussions. I will not try to define things rigorously. Rather, my focus will be more on the application perspective. And I hope that's something most of us will agree on. So yes, hello to everyone who has said hi in the chat. Palla Kanch Parth, hi. Let's get started. So yeah, what's a graph? So a graph is, if you think about it mathematically, it's a set of vertices and edges. So if I wanted to draw a graph, it is yeah, it's Mac. Okay, we have some nodes, and let's go for okay, let's go for blue. We have some edges. Pardon me for my bad drawing. So yes, you have a set of nodes. We can number them if you want. You can label them, and you have a set of edges. and yeah, that's basically a graph. So the you can model some problems uh, by considering some things as nodes and their relationships as edges. This will become more clear as we discuss what a graph is later on. If I want to describe this mathematically, I can say that graph is a set of v comma e. V is vertices, e is edges. So you have some set of vertices which is 1 2 3 4 5, and you can describe the edges like 1 comma 2 is an edge, 2 comma 3 is an edge, etc, etc. Yeah, that's literally all there is to it to understand for a beginner. And the next question you should have is that how do you represent this in code? And yeah, that's a valid question. I will come to that. So you can say that there are a lot of types, probably beyond what we are discussing right now. But as far as questions are concerned, as far as a beginner level understanding is concerned, you should understand that a graph may be undirected. When you say undirected, it is just like what we had seen previously, where you have some nodes, you have some connections between the nodes, and yeah, that's all there is to it. When you say you have a directed graph, your edges have a direction to it. So maybe it is possible that there is a direction like this, there's a direction like this, there's a direction like this. Yeah, okay, I just made a symmetry for it. Yeah, so this is what a directed graph is basically. And if you also consider, uh, you can also say there is something called a weighted graph, and that is when your edges will have weights. It may be directed, it may be undirected. So let's say the weight is 10, let's say this is 5, let's say this is 1, let's say this is 2, let's say this is 7. So you can think of maybe a simplified version of Google Maps. Like if you had a small location-based application you made, you probably would have a weighted graph at the back. Like Google Maps does not use graphs, but yeah, maybe if you can think of a simpler version like that. Sometimes it's good to have representations which also have an additional attribute, which is the weight. That's all there is to it. Yes, so these are the basic terminologies you need to understand, and depending on the situation, you can model a problem using any of these. So it is possible that you want to take some real life situation and put it down, like represent the notation things as a graph. So if you have studied some core CS subjects by now, you should have seen graphs appearing in databases, in operating systems, and places like that. And if you have solved some questions already, you would see that some questions do not mention that it's a graph question. Like you have to take the situation, model it as a graph, do some algorithm, get the answer. It is also possible that you get a direct graph question where you are supposed to exploit some properties to get some answer. But yeah, this is what you should know. There is one more thing which I want to talk about. Most of the graphs, when we assume, if you saw that there was no edge from the node to the node, so there may be an edge like this, there may be an edge like this. It is also possible that like in mathematical terminology, a graph may have a self loop, but for most of the questions we don't consider this. So when we go further, you can just assume that there are no self loops. I wanted to spend a minute on the practical applications of graph theory, because just to help you realize the importance of why do we study graphs. Like it's not just because interview mein pucha jata hai, it's also because it is central to a lot of things in computer science. So a very popular example which is discussed by a lot of people is social network graph. So when you have a large social network, you are going to have people, you are going to have relations between them. So it can be modeled as a graph problem where people are the nodes and the relations are the edges. A lot of fundamental CS problems like resource allocation in operating systems, some problems in database management systems, some problems in routing, I guess, in computer networks, and more are basically graph problems in disguise. And some routing algorithms in networks are actually DFS and BFS in disguise. So yeah, that's what there is. There is also a very popular, not popular, but yeah, emerging subject coming up, which is probabilistic graphical models, which is like where you use graphs and probability theory to make inferences, to make predictions. It's a new field. You might want to look it up if you're interested. You will find graphs in various real life algorithms. You will find graphs in machine learning as well at some point. If you go in that direction, etc. So yeah, just going back for a second to see if there is any question. Okay, there is not. Right. Let's move forward. How do you represent a graph? There are basically two ways. Yeah, bad run. There are two ways to represent a graph in code. I think this one is more intuitive, so let me do that first. Let's take a graph. Let's take a graph as an example, a small one. Let's say you have this. Mm, you have this. Let's go small. So you can have a matrix in your code where you can have one, two, three rows. You can have one, two, three columns, and when you say that there is a one, it means that there is an edge between those two nodes. So there are no self loops. So at the diagonal, it is going to be all zeros. There is there a connection between one and three? There is not. So if it was a directed graph, say something like this, then you would have a one between 1 and 2, but you would not have a one between 2 and 1, because you can go from 1 to 2, but you cannot go from 2 to 1 given the direction. But since it is not, you can say that there is a 1 here. 2 is connected to 3. There is no relation between 1 and 3. So in case this was a directed graph, say something like there is a connection here and here, you would not have these. Mm, you would not have a 1 between 2 and 1. You would not have a 1 between 3 and 2 also. So you cannot go from 3 to 2. So if you observe, uh, an undirected graph will have a special property here, that the adjacency matrix is going to be, it's going to be symmetric. If you have a directed graph and you want to represent it in an adjacency matrix, you can just replace the 1 with the weight. Like if your weight here was 5, mm, you could write a 5. As simple as that. Like that's all there is to it. Uh, so yeah, that was about adjacency matrix. Mm, let's go to adjacency list. Let's consider the same graph. Let's consider the undirected version for now. Yep. So when I have a list, I'm going to have one list for every node in the graph, and I'm going to store the connections. So one is connected to two, two is connected to three. Yeah, the list is small. If you want, we can take a larger example here because of for better understanding. Let's consider something like this. So one is connected to 2 and 4. 2 is connected to 3 and 4. 3 is connected to 2. And 4 is connected to 1 and 2. Again, if it was a directed graph, you would not have double connections. It would just depend on the direction. Maybe let's consider if it was something like this, like then you would not have. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. There should have been a one here. Initially, it was supposed to be 1 comma 3 comma 4, but since this is directed, you would not have this. So yeah, this is how you represent. If you had weights, say the weight here was 5, the weight here was 7, then you can store the weight as an additional argument. You can store it as a pair. So you would have something like 2 comma 5 and yeah, 4 comma 7 in your storage. So if you're using C++, this is like a vector of pair, vector of pair, because you will have a vector of nodes, and every node will have a vector associated with it. And you would in this case, it is just a matrix. So yeah, like which do you think is better? There is some delay between what I speak and what will reach to you. I think because of StreamYard there is a delay of 5 seconds. But I will try to wait and maybe see if someone wants to answer a question. So yeah, which is better? Like, we can wait for 5 or 10 seconds just to see if the delay is large. We will just not do this. Adjacency list is what Shakti Raj Singh says. Yeah. So why do you think an adjacency list is better? Okay, I think we'll go slow because of the delay in StreamYard. The answer to it is that there is no answer. So probably what Shakti Raj Singh thought when he said adjacency list is better was the space. That since you are storing only the connections, you are saving space. Like you are not storing the zeros here. So here the space complexity, if you understand asymptotic notation, let me use a different color. So this will be O of V square, the space complexity. Here it is going to be order of V plus A, because for every vertex you have one vector pointer, and you are going to have number of edges. You are going to have connections based on the number of edges. So this might be better if your graph is sparse, like you not have to store everything. If there were like, if it was something like a complete graph, a complete graph is basically where every node is connected to every other node. Then there are a lot of other fancy terms like there are, for graphs, which you can just Google whenever you encounter a term. So yeah, then the story would be different because now you have all the connections. So yeah, it would be the same story for both of them, because when you have a complete graph, the number of edges are of the order of v square. So suppose you had a complete graph. This is something is just I'm just mentioning as a side point. When you have a complete graph, the number of edges is order of v square. So because of that, this and this will be the same, and in fact, it might be better to use an adjacency matrix. So yeah, if adjacency list is so good, why do we even talk about adjacency matrix? The simple answer to that is simplicity. And also one more thing, which is that you can access, like you can check if there is a edge between two vertices is an O of one time. Here, like I just have to check if say it was adjacency matrix, like ADJ 1 comma 2, assuming that the indices begin with 1. I just have to check that, like you can just get that in a snap. In this case, I will have to iterate when I want to get an answer. That if there is a connection between the two. So yeah, that's one thing. But for most of the algorithms, we are going to use this simply because it works well with DFS and BFS. That's something you'll realize later. Like you are uh, okay. Let me not spoil the story right now. But yeah, I hope this is clear. If there are any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I also thought maybe it would be wise to spend 5 minutes to put it in a. Okay, let's go to coding only after we touch DFS and BFS. Okay, we have time maybe. Uh, According to yeah, okay, there are some answers. Thanks. Resizable. Naman Keshwani says resizable. Okay, that's a fair point. Adjacency this takes less space. Yes, that's something we discussed. According to space required in both, that's true. Is adjacency matrix worse than adjacency list even when the graph is dense? No. Like if the graph is similar, but you in that case probably adjacency matrix is better because checking like the reason we just discussed, like you can just check if there is a edge in constant time, and that can be a benefit if you are for a certain class of algorithms. So yeah, that's what answers the question. So should we spend some time like, putting a graph? Let's maybe move on to depth first. Are there any more questions? No. So DFS is just like what the name suggests. Let's say you have a graph like this. So when I say depth first, it literally means what it says. You are trying to traverse the graph. Like I want to explore the graph. I want to see. Okay, let me make the graph a bit more complex for better understanding. Let's say I want to traverse the graph. I want to explore the properties of a graph. So when you have a graph's photo in front of you, you can visualize it for yourself. You can see it. Uh, you can gain inferences from it, right? But when you represent the graph in code, like your computer doesn't understand, you will have to use algorithms to iterate through the graph to get what you want out of it. So let's say yeah, there are like these are the two basic strategies. One like as I said, it is what it is. Like the name speaks for itself. When I say depth first search, I want to go as deep as possible. Then I want to come back, go as deep as possible, come back, and so on. So when I let's say that I will start from one. I will go as far as I can. I will come back. I will go as far as I can. I'll come back. I'll go as far as I can come back, and eventually I'll hope that I've traversed the graph. If I have not, I will find another node which I have not traversed. So let's say I'll go to 8. I'll go as far as I can. I'll come back, and yeah, at one point I will have it traverse through the whole graph. I would have found or discovered every single node there is, and yeah, that's what there is to it at first. So let's say I started off from one. Then let's say that okay, there is just one connection. So when I will look around me, I have two. So let me go to two. Did my screen go off? Kernel crashed. Give me a second, guys. Okay, we were here, right? Let's say I went to then 2 only has 5 connected to it. Like there was one, of course, but since I had already visited one, I'm not going to go back. So yes, then I have 5. Then 5 doesn't have any other neighbor than 2. I've already visited 2, so I'm going to backtrack. 2 also doesn't have anyone else. So now वापस आया. Yeah, so 1 has 3. So I visited 3. 3 has 2 of them. It can take anyone. Doesn't matter. Let me go to 4. Then let me go to 7. So then I'll come back to 4. 4 doesn't have anyone other than 3 and 7, which are already visited. So we come back to 3. 3 has 6. So you have 6. And you end up traversing every node which was accessible by them. Now you are going to go to 8. And yeah, so 8 says I have 9. And then you come back. That's little bit. Like you just ended up traversing the graph depth first. Like you prioritize on the depth, then you backtracked, then you went as far as I could again. If I had started from say some other point like 5, for example, you would have 5 first. Uh, then you would have 2 because there is only way you can go. Then you can go to 1. Then because 2 is already visited, you can go to 3. Now you have a choice. Let's say at 6, you backtracked, went to 4, went to 7, went to 8, or maybe say you went to 9 first and then you went. This could also have been a possible traversal. So yeah, it depends on where you begin, and that's what's going to decide. And even you have to make some choices. Like it's generally what comes first in list is where you go first most of the times. So yeah, this was the first search. If there are any queries, feel free to ask. We are going to move on to the implementation, and we will also discuss uh, the complexity once we discuss the implementation, and we will also move on to some application of the search. I don't see any question, but yeah, if there is, I'll be happy to answer. So let's move to code. Share my screen again. Yeah. So my preferred language is C++, but you can literally use any language. You'll probably not find Graph as a standard data structure in your library for most of the languages. So yeah, you have to pull it up yourself. Let's consider an adjacency list, and maybe let's consider 5 nodes. Yeah, that would be good, I guess. So you have to create an adjacency list also. Let's say that ADJ0 has maybe, I have to do them one at a time. Hmm, let's say 4, one is also connected. Say, let's assume an undirected graph. So when you have uh, an edge in one direction, you also have an edge in the other direction. That's just for simplicity. Directing graphs, it doesn't matter. But let's keep life simple for now because our focus is on understanding the concept. You can also write a function which does it for you, but yeah, I want to be at the bare bones just to water down the complexity for you. It should not be overwhelming because anyways what we are going to cover is fairly exhaustive. Like BFS is something which should have an entire session by itself. So yeah, you have this. Be good, I guess. Maybe if it was just to discuss, maybe if it was an adjacency matrix, let's say if it was an adjacency matrix, it would have been something like you will want percent dimensions. Say I wanted to could have done something like this. I named it really. You get the point, right? That's how it would have been. And you can use any algorithm with any representation, but your time and space complexity will subsequently change. So yeah, let's say we have this. So depth first search, if I wanted to summarize, it's something like visit a node, iterate to the neighbors, visit a neighbor. So attract. So if you think of an iterative version, like if you want to write it iteratively, it will probably be more complex than what you can do with the power of recursion. And it's a problem which fits very well to recursion because you are doing the same thing at every step, right? You pick the node, you pick a neighbor, then you go to the neighbor. Then that picks a neighbor, you go to that neighbor. And then once you have reached the dead end, you come back. Then you pick another neighbor. So yeah, it's something which you can uh, represent with pure recursion. Like so that's something which can make our life simple. So how about we are also going to need another vector that is visited. It's called visited. We are going to use it to check if I have already visited a node. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in a mess like यहाँ से वहाँ से यहाँ वहाँ से यहाँ, and that's not going to help me. For some algorithms, for some kind of solutions, you might also want to store the parent of a data. That's for some like if you want some sort of an answer there, you might want to do this. So yeah, that's I think fairly what we need. So let me define. Let's say I want to visit a node V. Uh, let's say I have my adjacency list. I always prefer passing. my reference here, because otherwise C++ will create a copy and then it will pass, and that's just going to kill time of your code, and that's something you cannot afford. Yeah, so I think that's, yeah, okay. Let's also take parent, because so I'm just going to check first. First, let me mark that yes, hey, I have visited the. I'm good to go there. Now you're going to call your neighbors. Hi neighbor, are you visited? Hmm, if I'm not, visit. If you are, so yeah, you visit your neighbor in, and you also tell that parent of you was B. And then you call DFS, and the cycle goes on. And yeah, that's literally all there is to it. Maybe since we are going to test it out, let's let us see out there. And yeah, that's all there is to that process. So I want to save it. Let it. I should actually read through all the notes. And if it is not visited, I should just visit that. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to that process. Like life looks simple right now because uh, you had taken the input manually. If not, you would have to look at the input format and you will have to figure out how to take it. Uh, you would also here, if you see, the nodes are numbered well. Like I have end nodes, they are numbered from 0 to n minus 1. That makes life easy. Like suppose if you had a graph with nodes 1000, 1500, 1700, you would have to map them to some index in your vector. So yeah, that would have been an added complexity. Maybe you would have to use a map there, and your code would change. But yeah, we are considering a simple watered down version. You might a popular class of problems is involving matrices. So that's also where getting input and connecting the edges becomes trickier. But yeah, that's something I just wanted to keep in mind. Uh, we are not going to do that right now. But yeah, it's something good to know. Should this work? No, I think I should not do that. Next question. I guess this should be right. I hope there is no exception. Like yeah, so you went to 0, you went to 2, then you went to 1, you went to 4, you went to 3. So because there was a edge between 0 to 2, you went to 2. From 2 there is edge to 1. That's where you went. 1 से 4, 4 से 3. Because there should, okay, there is no edge, so you came back. You came back all the way to 0, and then you went to 3. That's what has happened. If there was, say, one more node 5, it was not connected to anyone, it would come in the end, because of this. I hope that's sort of intuitive enough to understand. Yeah, so that's literally it about the process. There are some very good applications, very profound applications from this very simple algorithm. Even Dijkstra is an extension of DFS if you think about it. But yeah, that's all. Is there any question? If there is, please feel free to ask. Ashwini Tiwari, hello Yashraj bhai. Hi there. And let me just come back to my slide. So what would be the complexity of this algorithm if you want to think about it? Maybe you want to spend a minute or two thinking about it. the time complexity? What would be the space complexity? Anyone wants to take a shot? Sir, what does parent matrix are? Please don't call me sir. I'm probably as old as you, and मैंने ऐसा कुछ भी उखाड़ा नहीं है कि you should call me sir. Parent matrix. Okay, yeah, we did not use it, right? That's a fair question. We should have used it. Let me go back. Thanks a lot for pointing that out. Yeah. So okay, we just initialized it, but yeah, you can say that parent of uh, like you can use it where say you want to. I cannot really think of a direct example right now, but yeah, you might want to. Uh, okay, like it helps you when you have DSU. It also helps you when you have a certain kind of problems. But yeah, it's good to have. Like you can also use it to backtrack your path. Say I did not print this. I want to say there was a graph like one say two say like three say like a four. So I know four's parent is three. I know three's parent is two. I know two's parent is one. So because of this array, I can literally go back and I can just trace it uh, to parents. I can go as back to the ancestors as I want. That's where it helps. It will also help you in some other examples which you might have, and it's a very common use. So it's good to know. Hope that answers. Yeah. So coming back, what would be the time complexity? What would be the space complexity? If anyone wants to take a shot. So what is happening when you use that process, right? Uh, you had you were here, then you went here, then you went here. So you are definitely accessing every vertex once, right? Like even in there are the number of recursive calls is going to be equal to the number of vertices, and for every vertex you are going to mark the visited array as true. So that's uh, like every visited array marking is a constant operation, and you are going to have to do it uh, the times which is equal to the number of vertices, and you are also going to check every edge once, in the sense that like this is assuming you use an adjacency list. So you are when you come to this point, say you are going to okay, this is a bad point. You are going to check this, you are going to check this, you're going to check this, that if this is visited, if this is visited, if this is visited. If yes, you will continue your traversal. If not, but you are going to check, and that is also a constant time operation. So it is going to be it is going to be it's going to be O of number of vertices plus number of edges, and the space complexity depends on your graph representation, because DFS as on its own is going to have some vectors, but that is O of V, and the graph is definitely going to be costlier than O of V. So because of that, you are just going to have the answer being dependent on your representation. Do we have a question? It's fairly simple. So I want to discuss a couple of applications. Maybe let's discuss breadth search for a second. Let's see how much time do we have after that. Let me consider the same graph. Hmm, I just ruined my own drawing for myself. Hmm, do I get to make a copy? I'm not that good at using this application. Okay. Oh wow, amazing. Let's forget this for now. I'll do some redrawing. Okay. Hope it's not that ugly. Yes. So when I say breadth first, it's again what the name says. I am going to go to to the closest neighbors to myself. I'm going to visit all of them, and then I will go to their neighbors, the closest ones. I'm going to visit all of them, and eventually, at a point, I would have everything visited. So you would have to sort of go again, like you'll have to have a follow loop again, like we had for DFS. That should be intuitive, I guess. Let's maybe ignore it for now, and maybe let's have a denser graph. Mm, yeah, should be fine, I guess. So, or maybe I can also connect this. So first I'm going to go to one. Let's say I began here. What are my neighbors? Like they are 2 and 8, right? So I'm going to visit both of them. Let's pick one of them now. Let's say I took two and I visited its neighbor, which is not yet visited. Like one is already visited. Let me then go to 8. There's no other neighbor, right? Yeah. So then let me go to 5 because I already visited 2 and 8, so it's 5's turn now. The neighbors of 2 and 8, so it's 5's turn now, and 5 doesn't have any other neighbor. So we are like the search ends there for 5. For 7 there is a neighbor 4. So I'm going to put it here. I have checked all the direct neighbors of all the nodes till 7. 4 has a neighbor which is 3. 3 has two neighbors but I already visited one. 6. So it's like you had a graph, like say you begin here, then you are going to visit all the immediate neighbors which are one distance away, then you are going to visit the neighbors of that neighbors, then you're going to visit the neighbors of those neighbors of those neighbors, and yeah, so on. And eventually you will visit every node possible. So that's a breadth first strategy. I hope that should be clear. Maybe try and do. Okay, I think that was a suggestion when I was mixing. So yeah, that's what breadth first search is. Very similar, but the implementation is very different. Let's breadth first search. To make my life easy, I'm just going to copy these. Let's consider a graph where everything is connected to everything. Like there is something called connected components, but we'll come to that. Uh, yeah, so when I want to do a breadth first search, there is a data structure which is going to help me do that. I cannot directly recurse through as easily as DFS probably because of the way it is. So I will have to, if you realized, if I had to go back at points, right? Like when I visited 2 and 8 from 1, after visiting them, I had to visit the neighbors of 2, I had to visit the neighbors of 8, then I had to visit the neighbors uh, of 5, then I had to visit the neighbors of 7, and so on. So when I visit the node, I'm also queuing, like I'm also telling myself that once I'm done with all the nodes visited before that node, I have to visit its neighbors too, and I have to add them to the list. Then I have to do it subsequently till I have visited all of them. So very naturally, a queue becomes a good kind of a solution for breadth first search. I can use a queue to have have a simple implementation because it's clearly a first in first out logic. Like once 8 got in, uh, it would, like I have to check 8's neighbors after once and two's neighbors are visited. Once uh, I can have to visit four's neighbors once every node up to seven's neighbors are visited. That's how it is, right? So that's why you are going to use a queue. And let's say you have some node from which you want to do BFS. You are also going to need uh, mm, let's keep the parent array here as well. So uh, I'm going to have a queue, and I'm going to put, I guess push is the right syntax, the source node in the queue. Then I'm going to iterate through the queue while there is something in the queue. Uh, say I look at what is in the front of the queue of, then I say that, yeah, what are the neighbors of, like once I got something in the queue, I have to look at the neighbors of ADJ queue. Is there some syntax error, like the color doesn't change for some reason? Okay. So yeah, go visit a neighbor and once put that in the queue. Then once you have it out, you visit all its neighbors. So in this case, our logic is going to be once you put something in the queue, you assume that you have visited it. So let's mark visited source as true, and if not visited, if I have not visited you, dear neighbor, uh, now I have, and you go to the queue. Or for, because I'm going to use you at a later point where I want to visit your neighbors. Like that's what you tells to I. in this case. If it is already visited, yeah, life is easy. So let's say that V has no parent because that's very big N, generally denoted by -1, and parent of I is U, and then it goes to the Q. At one point, the Q will be empty, and you are just going to accept. That's what there is to breadth search. Slightly complicated implementation than DFS. You can also write DFS iteratively, by the way, as discussed previously, using a stack. Like you will have to model the recursion steps uh, using a stack, and then you can do that. The DFS. Okay, let me put the C out statement whenever. Just to. Do we have any question? Hello. Oh! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Someone should have. Okay. Oh dear, this was such a blunder. I didn't realize at all. Okay, let me go back. Okay, let me explain it again. It should be visible, right? I guess now. Oh damn. Yes, hi Martin. Okay. So what I wrote was there is this DFS method, right? You take a source, you put that in the queue. Say okay, I visited you, and because uh, then you when you take it out from the queue, you are going to visit all its neighbors, and you are going to put those neighbors in the queue itself. So that when you come to them, you can take their neighbors and put them to the queue. Take their neighbors, put them in the queue, and at every iteration, you are going to take the first element out of the queue. So ultimately, you are going to have everything visited, provided that it's reachable. So you put the first element out, insert its neighbors queue. They are not visitable. That's what there is to it. And because of our simplicity, I had taken uh, the same graph as before. Same arrays will apply here as well. Say I want to do a BFS from 0. We're good to go. Thanks, Herschel, for confirming. I hope this is clear. I'm really sorry. I didn't realize the screen was not shared. Yeah, okay. I hope this still makes sense. Let me. There are no errors. Okay, we don't have an error. So what happened was you visited 0 ka neighbor 2, then you visited 0's neighbor 3, then you visited, then it's 2's turn right now because 2 and 3 are in the queue. 2's neighbor is 1, which you visited. Then it is 3's turn right now, but 3 doesn't have any neighbor, which is not yet visited. But 1 has a neighbor 4, and that's going to be visited. So yeah, that's about breakfast search. That's how it goes, and yeah, we just showed that the code works. This is how it should be. Do we have any questions? I'd be happy to discuss, and then we can just discuss the complexity and maybe a couple of applications, or maybe one of them, depending on how the audience is taking it and how much time we have. So yeah, guys, organizers, like if there is any trouble, please use the mic. I didn't realize I was not looking at the chat for 5 minutes. Okay, I don't see any questions right now, so I assume this is clear. And yeah, let's move on to the complexity of of DFS. So yeah, how what do you think should be the time complexity here? So again, if you think in analogy to DFS, you have to visit every vertex once. That's what should be the case. You also have to check every edge once, like to see if it is visited or not visited, and you don't uh, actually it happens twice because this vertex will be checked from one, this vertex will be checked from two. But yeah, constants don't matter when we are considering asymptotic complexity. And yeah, because of that the complexity should be no prices for guessing, it should be of v plus e. I'll take a 10 seconds pause to see if there are any questions and then we can move on to the applications. So yeah, do we have something? Okay, yes, we don't. Let's move on to some application. What do you think we should pick first? Let's cycle detection, let's put in the end if you have time. Yeah, so connected components is something I want to discuss. So when you say, I'm not going to define it like rigorously mathematically, but let's take an example. Say these are connected to each other, these are connected to each other, these are connected to each other, these are connected to each other. So a connected component is basically uh, like number of separate components which don't have any shared vertex between them. That's what a connected component is. So this you can say is one connected component because if you had access to one node, if you either did DFS or BFS, you could visit all others. Even if this did not exist, you could still visit all of them, right? So that's one connected component. This is another, this is another, and this is another. So you can say that the number of connected components here are four. If there was an edge like this, then this entire thing would have been a connected component, and the number of edges would go down to the number of connected components would go down to three. And you get it right, like it's a fairly simple concept. And yeah, this is in the context of undirected graphs. All our discussion is in the context of undirected graphs. For directed graphs the concept will slightly change. Also there is something known as strongly connected components there if you want to check it out, but that's something fairly advanced, and we don't want to go there right now. Harsh, that's something we can take in the end of the session. Maybe we can discuss a couple of applications and spend maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes for Q&A as much as the people want. Uh, but yeah, we'll come to that. So how do you code this up? Like how do you, like if I tell you, given a graph, find the number of connected components. Or I might also ask you to print them. There are plenty of other questions which are also possible. Like I might ask you that uh, what are the minimum number of edges that I need whenever if I want to make the number of connected components equal to one. Or I might ask you about those edges, like give me some edges which can connect all of them. I can ask you tons of things. But let's just focus on maybe finding the number of connected components. Like how do you think we should do that? Can we use DFS? Can we use BFS to find the answer? Uh, in the interest of time, the answer is yes for both of them. And that's simply because both are graph traversal methods, right? Like you traverse breadth first, you traverse depth first, doesn't matter. Uh, once you say I did a DFS from here, for example, right? I would visit this. I will visit this node, then I will visit this or visit this. I would know that I have run out of nodes. Then I would find this. Then I would find these. I would find this, right? Let's for the time being assume that this does not exist. So when I realized that I ran out of nodes, I would increment the number of connected components by one. Plus one here and plus one here. Similarly, if I had done a BFS also, yeah, I would have discovered this and these. Then I would realize that my queue is empty. I would need a for loop at one point there, just like we had for DFS, which we did not see for BFS. Then you would discover these, then these, then these. Maybe the order is different because of the way your data structure is. But yeah, you get the point. Can use either. Yeah, that's exactly the answer. Please explain connected components again. Hello Yashil. Okay, hi Yashil. Hope you're well. Please explain connected components again. That was a six. Okay. Connected components is basically number of. Okay, yeah. Am I back? I guess I am. Uh, I hope that. Sorry, guys, some bad internet problem. Let me just go to YouTube and see if I'm able to. See. Sorry, didn't realize. So yeah, we were at connected components. You can use DFS, BFS, and you can find the number of connected components in a graph, and you can do much more fancy things, but we're not going to do there in this conversation. So let's say I wanted to modify this. I wanted to use DFS to find the number of connected components. Um, let's say I'm using this quickly. So probably this place should change, right? Uh, I want to count the number of times I had to initiate a DFS to find the number of connected components. So whenever I find something which is not yet visited by my previous DFS traversal, I want to increment connected components variable. That's all there is to it. Find the number of connected components. So I would this one. And yeah, so when I say number of connectors, two. That's what there was in the graphic, that we had a separate node in the end which was not connected to any of the previous vertices. So if I remove that, I get one connected component. If it was not, let me make a more complex example. Maybe. Let's say that 5 is connected to 6. But 7 is not connected. Even these 5, 6 are not connected to other people, other nodes. So yeah, you got 3 connected components because one was the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. One was 5, 6, and one is 7. So this is one connected component. This is one connected component. This is one connected component. If you want to differentiate, that's true. In case you did not understand, so there is this is a connected component. This is a connected component. This is a connected component. That's all those two. But yeah, it's a fairly popular application, so you should know that again. Uh, let me just share my screen this time. It's just so yeah. What we did was uh, we added a variable called connected components, initialized it to 0. Then we did an increment whenever we had a new DFS call from the main for loop, because that's when you realize that you had a vertex which you did not visit the next time, and you access it, you increment it, then you say a number of connected components per person. So because I had something like 0 is connected to 2 is connected to 3 is connected to 1 and 4, yeah, because 1 and 2 are connected, 1 and 4 are connected, 5 and 6 are connected to each other, 7 is not connected to anyone. So this is going to be one connected component. This is going to be 1, and this is going to be 1. That's all there is to it. With a slight modification to depth first search, you can determine the number of connected components. Simple application. I hope there are no doubts. If there are, please feel free to put them. Should we go for cycle detection? Should we go for data detection? Um, we also have to take some time for questions. Maybe we can discuss the concepts for both of them, and then we can take questions instead of going into implementations. Otherwise, that would be 7 p.m. So, what is a bipartite graph? It's a graph which you can uh, separate to two subgraphs. It's not exactly subgraph. You can separate it to two partitions such that all the partitions are in different connected components, or all the partitions, all the vertices in the partitions are not mutually connected to each other. That's what there is. So let's say that maybe you had some nodes here, some nodes here, and say this is connected, this is connected, this is connected, this is connected, this is connected. But there is no connection between these folks. There is no connection between these folks either. This is what is a bipartite graph. If there was even a single connection here, it's not a bipartite graph. Like otherwise, you would have to recheck. You would have to see if you can sort of arrange it in a way that you get such two partitions. But yeah, having these two partitions is mandatory for a graph to be bipartite. A neural network is probably, if you take a two-layer neural network, it's a bipartite graph. If you want to take something you can relate to in case you have studied machine learning. So maybe you can also think, let's say these are some guys and these are some girls, and assuming all of them are straight, uh, you had like this graph represents the relationships between them, like current or ex relationships, and that's again a bipartite graph. Or maybe it shows, yeah, something you able to get the point, right? So if I want to check, for example, if a graph is bipartite, I can probably use one of these algorithms to do that, and that would also require you to probably understand something called graph coloring. Do we have anything? I should keep looking at the chat again and again. Good. So graph coloring is basically just a way to associate a color with a vertex. That's literally it, to be honest, and it has some applications, uh, like in maps, in wireless communication and things like that. And there is one condition which you should be aware of. No two adjacent vertices should have the same color. Yeah, that's a condition. So uh, say this, if this was blue, these both cannot be blue. This can be blue though if it wants to be, otherwise it's fine. Maybe say this is red, then these two cannot be red. And let's say this is for magenta. Yeah, magenta is the color. So this is what graph coloring is. There does not exist an optimal algorithm to color the graph. uh, like it's an NP hard problem, it's a proven NP hard problem. But like if I want to consider two coloring as a problem, I can say that in my bipartite graph, I give one color to one side and another color to this side, if this is possible, in a way that no edge has two same colored vertices on its sides, then I can say that I have formed a bipartite graph. Like intuitively, it makes sense. Like visually, also it makes sense. There's a mathematical proof to it as well, but we should not go into that. So yeah, if I can do this coloring, I have a bipartite graph. Two coloring, like if I want to be precise, if I have a two coloring possible, the graph is bipartite. That's what it is. That's what there is to it. So this can be done using breadth first search. I'm giving you the spoilers. So at every node, I have to do a BFS. I have to say give this a blue color, for example. Then I traverse to its neighbor. I will give it a red color. Then I traverse to its neighbor. I will give it a blue color. Then when I come back, I will also check like if there is a node which is already visited, I will have to check if this color condition is not violated. So from here to here, I have to mark it red. Uh, okay. From here, if I had blue here, I have to mark this as red and blue. So suppose if there was an edge here, when I mark this as blue, I mark this as red, I mark this as blue. When I came back, when I would be checking, I would see a vertex with the same color, right? this would imply that this is not bipartite. Like being making it bipartite is not possible. That's what can be implied using BFS. So a smart application of BFS gives you a bipartite graph check. Let's discuss this as well. So how do you detect a cycle in a graph? I hope you understand what a cycle is. A cycle is mm, let's take this again. Okay, let me just draw it again. It takes almost the same. Suppose I had a graph which had something like this. This is a cycle because there is a path uh, which which begins at a vertex and ends at the same vertex. That's what a cycle is. So I think you can check cycle using both DFS and BFS, but a fairly intuitive way is using DFS because see, like if in my depth first traversal, if I come back to the same place, I have a cycle. So that's what there is. There is a small edge case you have to look at. You should not consider this as a cycle. See, there is a path from here to here and there's a path from here to here. So that is a condition which you have to put in your code. But this is all there is to checking. Like if you find such a condition, like if you come back to one place in your DFS traversal, you have a cycle. Otherwise, you don't have a cycle. That's all. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go there. And rather, I would like to discuss if there are any questions related to the topics or even related to anything else. Like I saw a couple of them which I will be addressing. If you'd like to ask me about graphs, if you'd like to ask me about anything from my profile, uh, yeah, I would be happy to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes and then we can just wrap up. So over to the organizers. There are a couple of questions already, maybe three of them. Okay, we can take them.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting and extremely informative session. I personally found it very informative. Uh, so, the previous session, quiz winner are Saptarshi Das from Saroj Mohan Institute of Technology. Congratulations, he or she wins a prep t-shirt from Prep Bytes, and the link for practice session is in the description box. Please do check. And the today's quiz, you have to solve it now. Today's quiz link is in the description box. Please check it and solve it.